Before we dive in, if you think you can handle the truth about what really happens behind prison walls, where mercy runs out and justice takes its final breath, then hit subscribe, leave a like, and tell me in the comments, do you believe every man deserves a second chance? Now, let's begin. The steel doors of Louisiana State Penitentiary, Angola, opened with a moan that echoed down 100 yards of concrete hallway. It was 11:42 p.m. The air was thick, damp, and heavy with a silence that had weight. At the end of the corridor waited a man named Derek Malone, inmate number 103287, convicted of a brutal double murder in 1998. But tonight wasn't about guilt or innocence. It was about time. His had finally run out. Outside, the sky hung low, bruised purple under the floodlights. The wind pushed against the razor wire like it was trying to escape. Inside, guards moved with rehearsed precision, their faces unreadable. They'd done this before. Escorts, last meals, final prayers. But something about Derek's calmness unsettled them. He wasn't like the others. For 27 years, he had sat on death row, appealing, writing letters, claiming that his confession had been forced after 72 hours without sleep. But nobody listened. The case was closed. Evidence sealed. Only one reporter, Lena Brooks, still believed there was something wrong with how it ended. 2 weeks before the scheduled execution, Lena received an unmarked envelope. Inside was a photocopy of a lab report, the kind used in crime scene forensics, stained with coffee and creased like it had been hidden for years. The DNA results on the page didn't match Derek Malone. They matched someone else, someone whose name was blacked out. Lena didn't know where it came from, but it was postmarked from St. Francisville, the small town closest to Angola. Now, as the execution drew near, Lena raced against time to uncover what the state had buried. The governor's office ignored her emails. The attorney general's office told her to stop interfering with due process. And the warden's assistant, when she requested an interview, gave a single warning. The past don't change the outcome, Ms. Brooks. Best let the ghost stay buried. Still, she pressed on. On the day of the execution, Lena drove through the fog-covered road that led to Angola's main gate. Her press badge trembled in her hand. As she passed the farm fields, where hundreds of inmates worked under the watch of guards on horseback, she couldn't shake the feeling that this land, once a slave plantation, still carried the weight of unseen chains. The clock ticked closer to midnight. Derek was led from his cell to the death house, his wrists shackled, his steps slow but steady. Witnesses had already gathered in the small observation room. Family members of the victims, prison officials, 2 journalists, and the chaplain. Derek's attorney, a weary public defender named Ray Harlan, watched from behind glass, his face pale and tired. Lena wasn't on the official list, but she found her way in through a contact, one of the correctional officers who'd quietly slipped her a visitor's pass, whispering, "If you knew what really happened, you'd never sleep again." At 11:58 p.m., Derek was strapped to the gurney. He turned his head toward the glass, searching the faces. When he saw Lena, he smiled faintly and mouthed something. She couldn't hear it, but she read his lips. "They know." The room went silent as the warden stepped forward to read the warrant. The clock struck midnight. But before the injection began, one of the medical staff leaned close to the warden and whispered something urgent. The warden frowned, stepped out of the chamber, and spoke into his radio. The guard stiffened. Lena caught fragments. "Hold the order. Something's wrong with the protocol. Contamination in the line." 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Finally, the warden returned, his face drained of color. "The execution is temporarily halted," he announced. "State directive. Everyone remains in place." Lena's phone buzzed. An unknown number. A single text. "You were right. Check the body in cold storage." She froze. Angola's cold storage wasn't for food. It was the morgue. Outside the death house, the corridor lights flickered. A low hum filled the air, the sound of the backup generator kicking in. Something felt off. A guard ran past, radio crackling with static. Someone had broken into the medical records room on the north wing. Files were missing. Lena's instinct screamed. This wasn't a technical malfunction. It was a cover-up unraveling. She slipped out of the witness room and down the hallway, heart pounding, camera phone in hand. The power flickered again. For a brief second, the corridor was plunged into darkness. When the lights came back on, a door at the far end stood open. The morgue. Cold air rolled out like a living thing. Inside, the hum of the refrigeration units filled the silence. A sheet-covered body lay on the center slab. Lena approached slowly, every step echoing. She lifted the tag. It read, Case hashtag 99807, Evidence Retention. She pulled the sheet back. It wasn't a body. It was a mannequin, covered in dried blood, its chest hollowed out, and in that empty space, a plastic bag taped shut. Inside were photographs, crime scene photos from 1998, and one of them made her stomach drop. It showed a man standing behind police tape, wearing a brown sheriff's uniform. But in his hand, circled in red ink, was the same necklace that Derek's supposed victim had been wearing when she was found dead. The man wasn't Derek. He was Deputy Carl Whitaker, lead investigator on the case. Lena's breath caught in her throat, and at that exact moment, the power cut out completely. In the dark, somewhere behind her, a man's voice whispered, low, deliberate, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath. Miss Brooks, you should have stayed out of this. The lights in the morgue flickered back to life with a sharp buzz. Lena spun around, her phone shaking in her hand, the flashlight beam jittering across the white tiles. The voice that had whispered behind her was gone, swallowed by the low hum of the refrigeration units. She scanned the corners, half expecting to see someone step out from the shadows. But the room was empty. The door, though, was closing. She lunged for it and caught it before it latched, heart hammering. Whoever had been there knew this place well. Angola wasn't just a prison, it was a maze, and only the insiders knew where the cameras didn't reach. Lena stepped back into the hallway, every instinct screaming to leave, but her journalist's mind wouldn't let go. The photo she'd found, Deputy Carl Whitaker holding the necklace, wasn't just evidence. It was proof that the man who built Derek Malone's death case might have been the killer all along. As she slipped the photos into her bag, she noticed the envelope taped underneath the slab. Inside was a single key card labeled Admin, Restricted, with a handwritten note. He keeps the originals. Records Room B2. Trust no one. Outside, thunder cracked. Rain lashed against the old concrete walls. The storm had rolled in fast, and with it came a sense of something unraveling. Meanwhile, inside the warden's office, Burl Kane sat behind his desk, staring at a black-and-white security monitor. On one of the screens, he saw Lena Brooks walking across the corridor, clutching a folder. He frowned, his jaw tightening. She wasn't supposed to be in there, he muttered. His deputy warden, a younger man with narrow eyes and slick back hair, adjusted his tie nervously. Sir, she had clearance under Media Code 42. Someone must have approved it. Kane leaned back, the leather chair creaking. Find out who did, and lock down B2. The deputy hesitated. That room's under evidence protection, warden. You want me to pull the override? Kane didn't answer immediately. He turned to the window, where rain streaked down like veins of mercury. If she finds what I think she's looking for, he said quietly, none of us are walking out of here with our jobs intact. Back in the hallway, Lena followed the signs toward administration. The power flickered again, throwing her reflection against the glass doors like a ghost in motion. As she approached the restricted wing, she saw something that made her stop cold. 2 correctional officers standing guard outside the records room, their faces blank, hands resting on their batons. She couldn't go through them directly, so she took the long way, down the stairwell to the basement archives, where the old paper files were kept. The air down there was thick with humidity and dust. Boxes stacked to the ceiling, labels fading, ink bleeding. She used the key card on a side door, a light blink green. Inside, she found rows of filing cabinets, their drawers labeled by year. 1998. That was Derek's case. But before she could pull the files, she heard footsteps above her, heavy, deliberate. Someone else was in the building. She opened the cabinet quietly. Inside were folders marked Malone vs. State. Dozens of them. Court transcripts, forensics reports, photo evidence. Then she found something odd, a sealed brown envelope with the label Internal Memo Confidential. Inside was a typed letter dated May 3rd, 1998, written by Deputy Carl Whitaker to Warden Kane himself. Per your directive, evidence from the Malone scene has been reclassified. DNA report submitted under alternate case number. The necklace was recovered and transferred to storage pending administrative review. This will keep the chain of custody clean for the state's appeal defense. As discussed, discretion ensures continuity of order. Lena froze. The deputy and the warden had coordinated to alter evidence. The sound of boots echoed down the stairwell. She stuffed the letter into her pocket and switched off her phone light. Shadows danced across the walls as two men entered the archive room, flashlights sweeping across the boxes. "She's here," one of them said. "The warden wants her brought in quietly." Lena backed deeper into the aisle, crouching behind a stack of boxes. Her pulse thundered in her ears. One wrong breath, and they'd hear her. Then salvation. A sharp crack of thunder outside. The building shook, lights flickered, and the men turned toward the noise. Lena slipped past them, darting into the elevator shaft and up the emergency ladder, clutching the evidence in one hand. When she reached the second floor, she pulled herself through the open hatch into the hallway outside the chapel. The air smelled of old incense and cleaning fluid. A door creaked. From the darkness, a voice whispered, "In here." She hesitated, but curiosity overpowered fear. Inside the chapel, a man in prison blue sat on the front pew, his hands clasped together. He looked up slowly. His face was lean, weathered, but his eyes, calm, almost kind. It was Derek Malone. Lena's breath caught. How are you here?" He smiled faintly. "They stopped the execution. Said the gas line wasn't safe. Move me here till it's fixed." He looked down at his hands. "But that's not why you're here, is it?" Lena swallowed. "I found something. A letter between Whitaker and the warden. They planted evidence against you." Derek's expression didn't change. "You think I didn't know?" he said quietly. "The real question is, why do you think they did it?" Before she could answer, footsteps echoed in the hall. Derek's gaze hardened. "You need to leave. Now." He reached into his jumpsuit pocket and handed her a small photograph, old, faded, edges frayed. It showed a young girl standing next to a man in a sheriff's uniform. "Whitaker. She disappeared 3 years before my arrest," Derek said. "They said she ran away. But I knew the look in her eyes. She'd seen something. Something she wasn't supposed to." The chapel doors burst open. 2 guards stormed in, flashlights cutting through the dim light. Derek raised his hands calmly, eyes on Lena. "Tell her what you found," he whispered. They grabbed him, forcing him to the floor. Lena ran for the back exit, clutching the photo tight. As she pushed through the rain-soaked courtyard, alarms blared across the compound. Inside the warden's office, Burl Kane watched her flee on the surveillance feed. He leaned back slowly, a cold smile creeping across his face. "She's getting too close," he said. "Time to clean this up for good." He reached for a phone and dialed a secure line. "Activate the order," he said. "No witnesses. Not this time." And as lightning split the sky above Angola, Lena's car sped to the mud, her headlights cutting across the empty road. She didn't see the black SUV pulling out behind her. Not yet. The storm raged across the Louisiana night as Lena's car tore down the narrow dirt road that led out of Angola. The windshield wipers slapped furiously against sheets of rain, headlights carving through darkness thick as tar. Her phone buzzed with 1 bar of signal, just enough to upload the photograph she'd found. She hit send all to her editor's private server. "If I don't make it out," she whispered, "run this at dawn." Then the SUV's headlights appeared behind her. No sirens, no lights, just speed and silence. Lena's heartbeat synced with the engine's roar. She slammed the gas, tires spitting gravel. The road twisted, bordered by swamp on both sides. One wrong turn, and she'd vanish into the bayou forever. A gunshot cracked. The rear window shattered, shards of glass raining into her lap. She ducked, swerving. Another shot, closer this time. The SUV was gaining. Suddenly, a figure stepped into the middle of the road. Arms out, waving a flashlight. Lena slammed the brakes. The car spun sideways, screeching to a stop inches from a man. It was Officer Caleb Myers, the same guard who'd helped her slip into the witness room hours earlier. He ran to her window, face pale, soaked through. "You can't go to the parish station," he shouted over the rain. "They're all in on it." "Then where do I go?" "Follow me," he said. "There's a church past the levee. Someone there still remembers what really happened." They sped off down a side path, headlights bouncing over mud and potholes. Behind them, the SUV stopped for a moment, then turned off its lights and followed, silent, like a shadow hunting them. 15 minutes later, they reached a small wooden church, half sunken into the swamp, roof sagging under the weight of years. A faded sign read Mount Zion Missionary Baptist. Caleb led her inside. The place smelled of mildew and candle wax. An old woman sat near the altar, wrapped in a shawl, her eyes sharp despite her age. "You brought her," she said softly. Lena blinked. "You know who I am?" The woman nodded. "You're chasing ghosts. But those ghosts have names." She gestured toward a weathered photo on the wall. 5 men in uniform, smiling proudly beside a county seal. The caption read, "West Feliciana Sheriff Department, 1997. One of them was Deputy Carl Whitaker. Another, standing just behind him, was Warden Burrow Kane. The woman's voice trembled. "They called it the Integrity Task Force. Said they were cleaning up the parish. But those men ran a different kind of business. Drugs, kickbacks, evidence for sale. And when someone got too close, they disappeared." Lena's hand shook as she pulled the photo of the little girl from her pocket. "Do you know her?" The woman stared at it for a long time. "That's Cora Whitaker, Carl's daughter." "She's missing," Lena said. The woman's voice cracked. "She's not missing. She's buried." The words hung in the air like smoke. "She came to me one night," the woman continued, eyes wet. "Said she found blood in her daddy's truck. Said he told her never to ask about the woman in the red dress. A week later, she was gone. They said she ran off to Baton Rouge. But I saw Carl and the warden out by the Northfield, digging after midnight." Lena's pulse quickened. "The Northfield, that's part of the prison farm?" The woman nodded. "By the old pecan trees." A thunderclap boomed outside. The door burst open. Caleb spun around, gun drawn. The black SUV idled in the rain, lights flashing now. Men stepped out. 3 of them, dressed in plain clothes, weapons ready. "Get down!" Caleb shouted. Gunfire shattered the windows. With splintered, glass rained down. Lena ducked behind a pew, clutching the folder to her chest. Caleb fired back, hitting one of the attackers. The others advanced. Then, a voice cut through chaos. Deep calm, commanding. "Enough!" Warden Burrow Kane stepped inside, trench coat dripping, pistol steady in his hand. His eyes locked on Lena. "You could have walked away, Ms. Brooks," he said, "but you just couldn't leave well enough alone." Lena rose slowly, trembling but defiant. "You framed Derek Malone. You buried Whitaker's daughter. Why?" Kane sighed. "Because the system needed a villain. We had drugs running through the parish, and the sheriff's men were untouchable. Malone was nobody, a perfect story for the papers. Clean, fast, righteous. He leveled a gun at her. And now so are you." Before he could fire, a shot rang out from the side door. Kane staggered, clutching his shoulder. Standing behind him, half-soaked and trembling, was Derek Malone, still in his prison blues, rain plastering his hair to his forehead. "I'm done dying for your lies," Derek said. Kane sneered. "You think anyone will believe you? You're a convicted killer." Derek raised a gun. "Not for long." He turned to Lena. "Go. Take what you found. The truth belongs to someone who's free." Kane lunged. 2 shots echoed in the church. When the smoke cleared, the warden was on the floor, bleeding out beside the altar. Derek collapsed next to him, the gun falling from his hand. Lena knelt beside Derek. His breathing was shallow, eyes distant. "They'll twist it," she said. "They'll say you killed him trying to escape." He smiled weakly. "Doesn't matter. Just tell them she didn't run away. She tried to do the right thing. His hand went still. By dawn, state police flooded the area. The official report claimed the warden was killed during an escape attempt. But Lena's editor released the file she'd uploaded. The photos, the letters, the witness statement from the old woman. Within hours, headlines spread, Angola cover-up exposed. The governor ordered an independent investigation. Cora Whitaker's remains were found beneath the pecan trees, wrapped in the same red dress from the original crime scene photos. DNA confirmed everything. Derek Malone was cleared posthumously, his conviction vacated 3 days after his death. At the funeral, Lena stood by his unmarked grave, the Louisiana sun bleeding gold through the clouds. A breeze carried the smell of earth and rain, and something like peace. She whispered, "You were right, Derek." They knew. As she walked away, her phone buzzed, a new message from an unknown number. "You told their story. Now tell mine. Angola isn't finished." Attached was a photo taken inside the prison's archive room. In the background, behind the shelves, a metal door stood open. The label above it read, "Death Row, File Storage A." Inside, a shadow stood just out of frame. And on the floor beside it, another necklace, glinting in the light. Lena froze. Angola's secrets weren't buried. They were waiting.